Welcome to chapters 11 and 12 of the Chocolate Wars. This is part 6. And we're going to do just a really quick recap of what happened last time. And let's go back to our Cornell notes. This is part 6. Topic, objective, essential question. We're going to wait on that a little bit. What we remember from last time. Okay, so in part 5 of the Chocolate War, we saw that Jerry went home and saw his father sleeping. And Jerry felt really depressed about what his options in life would be. Remember, he kind of looked at his dad and went, oh man, is that all we do is work at a job we don't really love? And it depressed him. And then we saw Archie in the gym, and this is where Brother Leon was describing that sorry, that was my dog, that every student in the school would have to sell 50 boxes of chocolates. Now, I gotta tell you, 50 boxes is a lot. I have a kid right now who has to sell 30 pies, and it's a lot. I mean, do you know 30 people who are going to buy something from you? No. And then you got to start going door to door. It's very uncomfortable. So now we know that the kids are required to sell 50 boxes of chocolates. And that's pretty crazy. So our essential question is, what will Jerry do when he discovers that he has to sell 50 boxes of chocolates? We know that he's struggling, right? His mom died last year. He feels depressed, and now he's going to have this laid on him. And I can tell that he's going to find this frustrating. So let's see what happens. Chapter 11. It was as if somebody had dropped the bomb. Brian Kelly started it all when he touched his chair. It collapsed. Then everything happened at once. Okay, now I'm not exactly sure. I'm going to make a guess. I think this has to do with, remember Goober? Boomer? I can't remember his name now. Goober. He had to unscrew all the screws in a certain classroom, and then he ended up getting some help. I think that's what's going on here. Then everything happened at once. Albert LeBlanc brushed against a desk as he made his way down the aisle, and it fell apart after trembling crazily for a moment. The impact sent out vibrations which shot down 2 other chairs and a desk. John Lowe was about to sit down when he heard the noise of collapsing furniture. He turned and in doing so touched his own desk. The desk disintegrated before his astonished eyes. We're going to take this word right here, disintegrated. This is part 6. Disintegrated. So the desk disintegrated before his very eyes. The desk fell apart. It was unrecognizable. Right? When something disintegrates, like sugar disintegrates in Kool-Aid, it completely dissolves, it's not anymore. And that's what happened to his desk. And I spelled it wrong, so let's fix that. Leaping backward, he hit his chair. Nothing happened to his chair, but Henry Couture's desk behind it shivered violently and tumbled to the floor. The racket was deafening. My God, Brother Eugene cried as he entered the classroom and beheld the bedlam. Desks and chairs were falling apart as if being demolished by mysterious, unheard dynamite explosions. Brother Eugene rushed to his desk. That haven of security behind. That haven of security. Let's use that as our next vocab word because I stumbled over it. Haven. Haven is like heaven, right? It's your safe place. So he's rushing to his desk, his haven, his safe place. Let's see what happens. Behind which a teacher always found protection. At his touch, the desk swayed drunkenly, shifted gears into a lopsided position, and, miracle of miracles, remained upright at that strange tipsy angle. But his chair collapsed. Boys scrambled madly and merrily around the room. Once they realized what was happening, they dashed around room 19, testing all the desks and chairs, watching with glee as they fell apart, and toppling the stubborn pieces of furniture that refused to go down without help. "Wow!" somebody yelled. "The vigils!" somebody else called out, giving credit where credit was due. The destruction of room 19 took exactly 37 seconds. Archie timed it from the doorway. A sweetness gathered in his breast as he saw the room being turned into shambles. A sweet moment of triumph that compensated for all the other lousy things, his terrible marks, the black box. Witnessing the pandemonium, he knew that this was one of his major triumphs. One of those long shot assignments that paid off beautifully, certain to become legend. He could picture Trinity students of the future discussing in wonder the day room 19 exploded. He found it hard to suppress a howl of delight as he surveyed the havoc. "I made this happen," and saw Brother Eugene's trembling chin and horror-stricken expression. Behind the brother, the huge blackboard suddenly tore loose from its moorings and slid majestically to the ground, like a final curtain dropping on the chaos. "You!" Archie heard the voice in all its fury, at the same instant that he felt the hands spinning him around. He swiveled to encounter Brother Leon. Leon wasn't pale at this moment. Scarlet splotches glistened on his cheeks as if he had been made up for some grotesque stage show. A horror show, maybe, because there was nothing funny about him at this moment. "You!" Leon said again, a wicked whisper that spilled into Archie's face, the foul aftertaste of Leon's breakfast, the smell of stale bacon and eggs. "You did this," Leon said, digging the fingernails of one hand into Archie's shoulder while pointing to the chaos of room 19 with the other. Curious students from other classes had now gathered around the two entrances to the room, drawn by the crash and clatter. Some of them regarded the rubble with awe. Others glanced curiously at Brother Leon and Archie. No matter where they looked, it was great. An interruption of school routine, a diversion in the deadly order of the day. "Didn't I tell you I wanted everything to go smoothly? No incidents, no funny business." The worst part about Leon's fury was the way he whispered, this terrible, tortured hissing from his mouth, giving his words a tone more deadly than a shout or a yell. At the same time, his grip on Archie's shoulder got tighter, and Archie winced with pain. "I didn't do anything. I didn't promise anything," Archie said automatically. Always deny everything. Never apologize. Never admit anything. Leon pushed Archie up against a wall as the boys began to fill the corridor, pouring into room 19 to view the destruction, and milling around outside, talking and gesturing, shaking their heads in wonder. The legend had already begun. "I'm in charge, don't you see? This entire school is now my responsibility. The chocolate sale is all ready to start, and you pull something like this." Leon released him without warning, and Archie hung there as if suspended in midair. He turned and saw some guys staring at Leon and him. Staring at him. Archie Costello, humiliated by this sniveling bastard of a teacher. His sweet moment of triumph spoiled by this nut and his ridiculous chocolate sale. He watched Leon storming away, pushing his way through the tumultuous corridor, disappearing into the swarming stream of boys. Archie massaged his shoulder, gingerly feeling the spot where Leon's fingernails had bitten deep. Then he thrust himself into the crowd, pushing aside the guys gathered near the doorway. He stood at the entrance, drinking in the beautiful debris of room 19, his masterpiece. He saw Brother Eugene still standing there in the midst of the shambles, tears actually running down his cheeks. Beautiful, beautiful. Screw Brother Leon. We're going to add one word, and that's this one, gingerly. It says, gingerly feeling the spot where Leon's fingernails had bitten deep. So gingerly means carefully. Gingerly. Carefully with gentleness. Okay. And now let's go to our Cornell notes. We've got a couple questions to ask ourselves. Question number 1. Well, I actually want to ask you something. How would you feel about making a teacher cry? And then how does Archie feel about making a teacher cry? So I know we'll have to put the answer down here because we already put some notes up top. But think about that a minute. How would you feel about that? Would you feel good? And how does he feel about that? And then 2, consider Brother Leon's actions. What do you predict could happen between Brother Leon and Archie? Okay, so we know, I think that's spelled correctly, I'm not sure. We know that Brother Leon is not happy with Archie. What could happen between them? He is depending on the vigils to sell the chocolates. I don't know what power Brother Leon has, and I don't know if he can make Archie do anything. But it's something to consider. What can happen here? Where is this headed? Where is this school disaster going? And disaster is how I would phrase this. All right, let's read chapter 12. Well, and then look at Archie's attitude, right? At the end, he's like, I don't care what Brother Leon does, but he might. We'll see. Chapter 12. Try it again, the coach bellowed, his voice hoarse. The danger point. His voice always got hoarse when he lost his patience, when he was in danger of blowing his top. Jerry picked himself up. His mouth was dry, and he tried to suck spit into it. His ribs hurt. His entire left side was on fire. He stalked back to his position behind Adamo, who played center. The other guys were already lined up, tense, waiting, aware that the coach wasn't happy with them. Not happy? Hell, he was furious, disgusted. He had arranged this special practice, giving his freshmen a chance to scrimmage against a few members of the varsity to show off all he had taught them, and they were doing lousy, rotten, terrible. There was no huddle. The coach barked the number of the next play, a play designed to suck in Carter, the big, beefy varsity guard who looked as if he could chew freshmen up and spit them out. But the coach had said, we'll have some surprises for Carter. It was tradition at Trinity to toss star players against the freshmen and to build plays designed to stop the stars. This was the only reward the freshman team reaped because most of them were too young or too small to play varsity. Jerry crouched behind Adamo. He was determined to make this play work. He knew that the previous play hadn't worked because his timing was off and because he hadn't seen Carter come crashing out of nowhere. He had expected Carter to blitz, and instead the big guard had pulled back and skirted the line, annihilating Jerry from behind. What infuriated Jerry was that Carter toppled him gently, lowering him to the ground almost tenderly as if to prove his superiority. I don't have to murder you, kid. It's easy enough this way, Carter seemed to be saying. But this was the 7th consecutive play, and the damage of being tackled play after play was taking its toll. All right, guys, this is it. Make or break. It's all over, fellas, Carter taunted. Jerry called the signals, hoping his voice sounded confident. He didn't feel confident, and yet he hadn't given up hope. Every play was a new beginning, and even though something always seemed to go wrong, he felt that they were on the verge of clicking. He had confidence in guys like Goober and Adamo and Croteo. Sooner or later, they had to click. All the work had to pay off. That is, if the coach didn't cut them all off the squad first. Jerry's hands were joined like a duck's bill, waiting to swallow the ball. At his signal, Adamo slapped the ball into his palms, and Jerry began to fade at the same instant. To the right, slanted, swift. His arm already coming up, ready to be cocked, ready for the pass. He saw Carter snaking through the line again like some monstrous reptile in his helmet. But suddenly Carter became all arms and legs, tossing and turning in the air,
hit devastatingly low by Crotio. Carter collapsed on Crotio, and both of them fell in a tangle of bodies. Jerry felt a sudden sense of freedom. He continued to fade, easy, easy, stalling until he could spot the goober, tall and rangy, downfield where he'd been waiting if he had managed to elude the safety men. Suddenly, Jerry spotted Goober's waving hand. Jerry avoided fingers that tore at his sleeve, and he unloosed the ball. Someone brushed his hip, but he shrugged off the blow. The pass was beautiful. He could tell it was beautiful, straight on target, even though he couldn't watch its progress because he was dumped violently to the ground by Carter, who had somehow recovered after being demolished. As he hit the ground, Jerry heard the yells and the cheers that told him the goober had caught the pass and gone on to score. Good, 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 the coach's voice, raucous in triumph. Jerry struggled to his feet. Carter slapped him on the ass, signaling his approval. The coach lumbered toward him, still scowling. But then he never smiled. Renault, the coach said, all hoarseness gone. We just might make a quarterback out of you yet, you skinny little son of a bitch. With the fellow standing all around him and his breath coming in gasps and Goober arriving with the ball, Jerry knew a moment of absolute bliss, absolute happiness. There was a legend in the school that the coach hadn't accepted you as a player until he'd called you a son of a bitch. The guys lined up again. Jerry was sweet poetry and music as he waited for the ball to be slapped into his hand. When he returned to the school after practice, he found a letter scotch taped to the door of his locker. A summons from the vigils. Subject: assignment. So because these have been short, we're actually going to do one more chapter. But I want to add one more word to our list, and that's raucous. Raucous. Let's go to our list of words. Raucous is, oh boy, raucous, rowdy, rambunctious, lots of energy, right? And that's what the coach is. And then we're also going to go to our Cornell notes and ask ourselves one more question. What will this football success mean for Jerry? And what happened that he had a success? All right, so answer that question here. What did he do to make a success? How does he feel about it? What do you think that might mean for his future football career? All right, chapter 13. So now he's received a summon from the vigils. That's a bad sign. Well, I don't know. I think it must be a bad sign, but it's inevitable. Chapter 13. Adamo? Yes. Bouveau? Yes. Crane? Yo. Crane, the comedian. Never a straight answer. Caroni? Yes. Everyone could see that Brother Leon was enjoying himself. This is what he liked, to be in command and everything going smoothly. The students responding to their names smartly, accepting the chocolates, showing school spirit. The goober was depressed, thinking about school spirit. Ever since room 19 had collapsed, he had lived in a state of mild shock. He awoke each morning depressed, knowing even before he opened his eyes that something was wrong. Something had gone askew in his life. And then he'd remember room 19. The first day or two had been kind of exciting. Word had gotten around that the destruction of room 19 was the result of his assignment by the vigils. Although no one mentioned the subject to him, he found himself a kind of underground hero. Even the seniors looked at him with awe and respect. Guys patted him on the ass when he passed by, an old Trinity mark of distinction. But as the days went on, an uneasiness stole across the campus. There were rumors. The place was always filled with rumors, but this time they grew out of the new room 19 incident. The chocolate sale was postponed for a week, and Brother Leon, speaking at chapel, gave a weak explanation. The head was hospitalized. There was a lot of paperwork involved, etc., etc. There were also rumors that Leon was carrying on a quiet investigation of room 19. Poor Brother Eugene had not been seen since that devastating morning. He'd had a nervous breakdown, someone said. Others reported that there had been a death in his family and he'd been called away. Anyway, it all heaped itself upon the goober, and he found it hard to sleep at night. Despite the adulation of the guys at school, He felt as if there was some kind of distance between him and the fellas. Adulation. That's a good word. Let's add that. Adulation. That's like praise, congratulations, admiration. So the guys respect him for this and they're congratulating him on it, and yet there's something off. They admired him, sure, but didn't want to get too close in case something backfired. One afternoon, he'd met Archie Costello in the corridor, and Archie had pulled him aside. "If they call you in for questioning, you know nothing," Archie said. Goober had no way of knowing. This was the kind of thing Archie loved to do. Intimidate someone, get him worrying. Since then, the Goober had walked around in a state of apprehension, expecting to see his name on a wanted sign on the bulletin board, for crying out loud. He didn't want the adulation of the fellows anymore. He simply wanted to be the Goober, to play football and to run in the morning. He dreaded a summons from Brother Leon, wondering if he could stand up under questioning, whether he could look into those moist eyes of Brother Leon's and actually lie to him. "Goobert?" He realized that Brother Leon had been calling his name 2 or 3 times. "Yes," the Goober replied. Brother Leon paused, looking at him questioningly. The Goober shriveled. "You don't seem to be entirely with us today, Goobert," Leon said. "At least not in spirit." "I'm sorry, Brother Leon." "Speaking of spirit, Goobert, you realize, don't you, how this chocolate sale goes beyond a mere sale or routine project, don't you?" "Yes, Brother Leon." Was Leon baiting him? And baiting means, was he trying to get him to react? Was he trying to get him to get in trouble? "The most beauty part of the sale, Goobert, is that it's a project completely by students. The students sell the chocolates. The school merely administers the project. It's your sale, your project." "Bullshit," someone whispered out of Leon's hearing. "Yes, Brother Leon," Goober said, relieved, realizing that the teacher was too much involved with the chocolates to be assessing Goober's innocence or guilt. "Then you accept the 50 boxes?" "Yes," Goober said with eagerness. 50 boxes was a lot of chocolates, but he was glad to say yes and get out of the spotlight. Leon's hand moved ceremoniously as he wrote down Goober's name. "Hartnett?" "Yes." "Johnson?" "Why not?" Leon accepted this small hint of mockery from Johnson because he was in such a good mood. The Goober wondered whether he himself would ever be in a good mood again, and he was puzzled. Why should he be feeling so lousy about room 19? Was it the destruction? Actually, the desks and chairs had been put back together again in one day. Leon had thought he was inflicting punishment on the fellows selected to do the job, but the discipline backfired. Each screw, each piece of furniture was a reminder of that marvelous event. Fellows even volunteered for the job. Then why this terrible guilt? Because of Brother Eugene? Probably. Whenever Goober walked by room 19 now, he couldn't resist glancing in. The room would never be the same, of course. The furniture creaked weirdly, as if it would collapse again without warning. The various teachers who used the room were uneasy. You could tell they were apprehensive. Once in a while, some guy would drop a book just to see the teacher flinch or leap in panic. Immersed in his thoughts, the Goober didn't realize that a terrible silence had enveloped the classroom. But he became aware of the silence when he glanced up to see Brother Leon's face, paler now than ever, and the eyes glistening like sun-splashed pools. "Renault!" The silence continued. The Goober glanced toward Jerry 3 desks away. Jerry sat stiffly, elbows resting on the desk, staring straight ahead as if he were in a trance. "You are here, aren't you, Renault?" Leon asked, trying to turn the moment into a joke, but his effort had the opposite effect. No one laughed. "Last call, Renault." "No," Jerry said. The Goober wasn't sure he'd heard correctly. Jerry had spoken so quietly, barely moving his lips, that his answer had been indistinct even in that utter quiet. "What?" from Leon. "No." Confusion now. Someone laughed. A classroom joke was always appreciated, anything to fracture the dullness of routine. "Did you say no, Renault?" Brother Leon asked, his voice testy. "Yes." Yes, what? The exchange delighted the classroom. A giggle from somewhere, and then a snort, followed by the strange mood that took hold of a classroom when the unusual occurred, the way students sensed a difference in the climate, an alteration of atmosphere, like the seasons changing. Let me get this straight, Renault, Brother Leon said, and his voice brought the room under his command again. I called your name. Your response could have been either yes or no. Yes means that, like every other student in this school, you agreed to sell a certain amount of chocolates, in this case, 50 boxes. No, and let me point out that the sale is strictly voluntary. Trinity forces no one to participate against his wishes. This is the great glory of Trinity. No means you don't wish to sell the chocolates, that you refuse to participate. Now, what is your answer? Yes or no? No. The goober stared at Jerry in disbelief. Was this Jerry Renault, who always looked a little worried, a little unsure of himself, even after completing a beautiful pass? Who always seemed kind of bewildered? Was this him actually defying Brother Leon? Not only Brother Leon, but a Trinity tradition? Then, looking at Leon, Goober saw the teacher as if in technicolor, blood beating in his cheeks, his moist eyes like specimen laboratory test tubes. Finally, Brother Leon inclined his head, the pencil moving in his hand as he made some kind of horrible mark beside Jerry's name. The silence in the class was the kind Goober had never heard before. Stunned, eerie, suffocating. Santucci, Leon called out, his voice strangled but struggling to be normal. Yes. Leon looked up, smiling at Santucci, blinking away the flush on his cheeks, a smile like the kind an undertaker fixes on the face of a corpse. Tessier? Yes. Williams? Yes. Williams was the last. There was no one in this class with a name beginning with X, Y, or Z. Williams' yes lingered on the air. No one seemed to be looking at anyone else. You may pick up your chocolates in the gym, gentlemen, Brother Leon said, his eyes bright, wet bright. Those of you who are true sons of Trinity, that is. I pity anyone who is not. The terrible smile remained on his face. Class dismissed, Leon called, although the bell had not sounded. All right, my friends, let's go back to Cornell Notes, Part 6. I got a question for you. Why did Jerry refuse to sell the 50 boxes of chocolates? All right, you tell me what you think. Okay, you give me the answer to number 4, why you think he refused to sell them. And look at our question again. What will Jerry do when he discovers that he has to sell 50 boxes of chocolates? Well, now we know what he will do. He will refuse the call. The question is, why did he do it? If we look back, there was a little hint, right? There was a note on his locker that said the Vigils wanted to meet with him. We did not see him meet with the Vigils. We don't know what happened, but there is probably a relationship between those two events. So tell me what you think, right? Why did he refuse to sell the 50 box of chocolates? And that is it for next time. Please turn in this Cornell Notes sheet when you have answered the questions, and we will carry on for next time.